A Michigan office manager risked his career to expose a doctor who gave chemotherapy to patients who did not have cancer. Dr. Farid Fata gave unnecessary treatments to more than 500 patients at a Detroit area cancer center. In tonight's episode of the CBS News series, Whistleblower, host Alex Ferrer talks to the former office manager who stepped forward to expose the man responsible.
I couldn't believe what was in front of me. I couldn't believe what I was seeing.
George Karache took a new job in 2011.
I was an office manager for an oncology practice.
Dr. Farid Fata had a rapidly expanding practice in suburban Detroit. But within 2 years, one of the other oncologists and 2 nurse practitioners announced they were leaving. Karache confronted that other oncologist.
"Are you leaving?" And he said, "Yes." And I said, "Can I ask you why?"
What the doctor told George Karache about Dr. Fata was a bombshell.
Patients were given chemotherapy and other treatments when they didn't have cancer.
Robert Sobere was referred to Dr. Fata by his back surgeon.
I heard he was one of the best there is.
I am Dr. Farid Fata with Michigan Hematology Oncology.
Dr. Fata did a bone marrow biopsy.
2 weeks later, he turned around and said, "You got multiple myeloma. It's a blood cancer, a bone-destroying disease."
He began monthly chemotherapy infusions.
I'd become weak, sick to my stomach, tired all the time. I couldn't walk anymore. The chemotherapy eventually destroyed all my teeth.
Sobere went to see a different oncologist. He was shaken by what he heard.
And he says, "I've seen both biopsies. There's nothing says that you had cancer anywhere in there." I was shocked. It was worse than hearing that you have cancer.
I was determined to have this doctor stop harming people.
His head spinning, George contacted an attorney he knew who handled whistleblower cases. George believed he might have a strong one.
We've heard a lot of strange stories about fraud, but that one was beyond fraud. It was cruel, it was criminal, it was risking people with poison.
David Herron wasted no time. He called the Department of Justice.
Without a doubt, this is the fastest and most intense lawsuit I've ever handled in this area.
George Karache was willing to put everything on the line.
My job was at stake, my livelihood, even my own personal safety. I wasn't looking at the patients anymore as being treated. I looked at it as a burning building with people inside. I had to make it stop, and I had to make it stop quickly.
So joining me now is Alex Ferrer. He is the host and executive producer of Whistleblower. Man, Alex, I remember when this story hit the papers, but you know, as it is with news, it makes a headline and it sort of goes away, and I didn't really know what the background was. What exactly was the fraud here?
It was healthcare fraud. It was basically healthcare fraud. For years, what this doctor did was treat patients who didn't have cancer or didn't need chemotherapy with chemotherapy because it would fill his pocket. It would add thousands of dollars to his pocket using their body, using their lives for his own personal gain. Now imagine how difficult. Somebody tells you they have that you have cancer.
Yeah.
You know, you have to absorb that. I may die. You have to tell your family, your kids, your spouse, your friends, how it affects your career that you're going to chemotherapy, right, which is so poisonous to your body, but hey, maybe life-saving. And then find out you never had it. This doctor just wanted to add to his bank account.
So the first thing I thought when I saw this story is, if a doctor told me I had cancer, I would go get a second opinion. I would think there would be people getting second opinions, finding out that they didn't have cancer, and somehow that would have, you know, raised the alarms with this guy.
First of all, you'd be surprised how many people don't get second opinions on anything. And especially when they're told they have cancer and they think, "Oh my God, thank God I came to you and you caught it in time." Secondly, this doctor had a stellar reputation. He was known as like the top of the field for top of the field oncologist in this area. So who would question him? And third, you have to also imagine some people probably this was their second opinion. They had a problem, they had a pain, they had something, went to see a doctor who told them, "You've got nothing," and they thought, "Let me get a second opinion."
Right.
Now you go to the top of the line oncologist and he says, "Oh, you know, we caught it in time. You've got this
he's going to save your
particular
life.
form of cancer, but don't worry, I've got a tremendous success rate." Of course he had a tremendous success rate.
Because his patients don't have cancer. At least
Yeah,
some of them.
it's hard to fail.
Wow.
So, and then there were patients who did have cancer who he was also treating. Typically, there's a course of treatment. You have maybe several months, and then you have time off, and then you have several months again for a second course, and then they evaluate how it went. He would put the patients on chemotherapy for 2 years, 3 years, 5 years.
Oh my God.
Constant chemotherapy. What that does to your body. You had patients whose teeth were destroyed. You had patients who were terminal, were never going to get better. In medical practice, at that point, when you realize there's nothing we can do,
you give them quality of life.
The treatment stops.
Right.
Let them enjoy their remaining days with their family. He would give them chemotherapy in the last days of their life because he could bill Medicare for it, because he could bill private insurance companies for it, even though it had no chance of saving them.
So let's talk about this whistleblower. What happens when George goes to the Justice Department?
Imagine how difficult it is, first of all, to be George. You're an office manager. You're not a doctor. You don't have any medical expertise. You have the top of the line oncologist treating patients, and you're going to question his judgment. That's difficult in and of itself. Then he goes and he decides to go forward, risk everything. He knows he's going to get fired, but I mean, probably his career is over. Who's going to hire him after this?
Right.
But he goes forward and blows the whistle. It usually takes up to 2 years, maybe longer, for the Department of Justice to make a decision to join a case. He went to them on Friday, him and his lawyer. They pulled in an investigative team that included the FBI, the Health and Human Services, the IRS, and all these other agencies, and they just worked nonstop through the weekend because every day you have patients coming in and getting chemo that may be unnecessary to them, that could kill them, that could cause them to lose limbs.
Right, or their life. I mean, eventually,
Sure.
chemo's poison, like you said.
Absolutely. Yeah. So they worked through the weekend, and 5 days after he blew the whistle, Dr. Fata was arrested.
Wow.
But now comes the really difficult part. He's treating hundreds, if not thousands, of patients. How do you decide quickly who needs chemo and who doesn't on all these patients? As the FBI is in there grabbing files, patients are walking in their door for their chemo.
Oh my gosh.
Do you give it to them or do you not? This is a very difficult decision. When you see the show tonight, it's just incredible what they had to deal with and what George had to deal with, what he had to do. And he was afraid for his life. I mean, you were talking about interfering with multi-million-dollar practice in a very short period of time. Dr. Fata subjected over 550 patients to unnecessary chemotherapy.
It is sickening.
And billed Medicare over $34 million.
Oh my gosh. Alex Ferrer, thank you so much. I look forward to this next installment of Whistleblower.
Thank you.
Whistleblower airs tonight at 8 p.m., 7 Central on CBS.